Welcome to How to Be a Humane Leader Without Losing Your Job. We're here to chat about humane leadership in a way that's real, relatable, and tackling work-life challenges and offering practical advice to navigate tough decisions. Whether you're leading a team or navigating your own career, we've got you covered. I'm Chris Olerking, a Fortune 100 IT leader, and with me is Roberto Torres, a startup engineering leader. We'll dive into real-world stuff, share experiences, and offer guidance on leading with compassion while keeping your career on track. Today, we'll discuss how to recognize a coaching moment and make the most of it. Good morning, Roberto.
Good morning, Chris. How are
Tell
you?
you, I was a little tired this morning. I slept in, so if I'm not quite as perky or as sharp as I normally am, I'll have some more coffee and maybe I'll be a little sharper. How you doing?
Well, first of all, with that big mouth, you're going to be awake, so I trust that everything will be okay. And I'm
Coffee,
great.
coffee helps everything, right?
Yeah, yes. Even though I'm not a coffee lover, I dislike it, but I understand.
Well, I guess we could still be friends even if you don't like it.
Yes, I am. Let me tell you that my wife drinks coffee a lot, but well, I'm deviating, man. But yes,
Well, it actually leads into our coaching topic a little bit because just like that, sometimes you got to realize not everybody likes everything that you like, right? And that's just recognizing differences and being a good coach. A humane leader who's a good coach has to recognize not everybody's going to like the same things. They aren't going to like things the same way. And just preparing yourself to be the coach is a very important aspect of preparing and recognizing when somebody will accept coaching, right? We may
yeah,
think of ourselves as humane leaders, but we can't just climb up onto the ladder and shout to the masses our great pearls of wisdom because people have to be ready and feel that perhaps that you can help them before you can really do anything for them.
yeah, yeah. For instance, maybe you have one of your team members that has spoken many times, maybe with the highest, with the chief level, and what you could do is coach them to say, "Hey, you have to be more open. You have to talk more with them." Even though you don't like talking with that kind of people. So we have to coach about that. So as you mentioned, we spotted when people doesn't like something. And if we see that they're going to be better at the job or it's going to foster a further promotion, well, we have to coach them.
Absolutely. And I think that they're open, they can be more open to coaching at certain times. And this is highly variable on the person. So again, coachable moments, lots of times it depends on your relationship with that employee. How long have you known them, et cetera, is going to impact how much they might accept your coaching. If you've only just met this employee, you're at a gigantic company, no, they may not accept your coaching, no matter how senior of a leader you are. They may not be all that interested in your insight if there's no relationship. So if you can recognize that a person has a challenge, that's one of the first things you can do. Right? Is to say, hey, okay, I see something in Roberto. He doesn't understand the benefits of coffee, and he may think it doesn't taste so good, but he's already shared with me that his wife does. So I'm starting to see a moment where I might suggest to him that, sometimes there are things in a team where bonding takes place because of mutual interest in things or you're participating in something together. And, so you may not like coffee, but, there are a lot of other flavors now that, 50 years ago, there was basically black coffee and coffee with cream in it. And that was the two coffees that there were. Now there's all these different flavors. And so maybe, you don't have to be into coffee, but, Roberto, you might try something with a little different flavor. And so as the humane leader, we may not try and get Roberto to change his attitude completely, but just open the door to consider something, right? So as we're coaching our employees, sometimes it's important not to get them to completely change their mind, but to start them on the path of considering changing their mind, or at least being more open to the idea. And sometimes it's just that little subtle hint. You don't have to bring them into your office, close the door. Roberto, sit down. I need to talk to you about coffee. This is generally not the approach for, let's say, things that would just make the team work more smoothly, right? Instead, we want to coach them with, sometimes bonding over things helps our team work better together, Roberto. There's so many different flavors of coffee. You should at least try one of those different flavors. If you really like chocolate, there are chocolate flavored coffees, and just leave it at that, and you walk away. And that can be sometimes that initial coaching step that opens the door. And maybe Roberto doesn't have any chocolate coffee yet, but then the next time you see him, did you ever think about having that chocolate coffee? Or maybe you're on a business trip together and you're at the hotel breakfast bar, and you say, hey, it doesn't cost anything. Why don't you try the chocolate coffee or something?
Yeah.
It's recognizing those little things where you can plant just a little seed is an important way to coach your employees.
Yes, because we people have we are feeling uncomfortable with certain things, and when we have our humiliator that detects that these uncomfortable things might block us from advancing or from getting more knowledge or from getting a career promotion, it's up to us, the human leaders, to not only spot this, not only plant a seed, as you mentioned, but take care of that team member and look if they could if they decide to take this challenge and try to tackle it along with your help. So yes, I think that when we spot on a certain coaching moment, is because that person either doesn't want to see it or doesn't recognize it. Because when there are uncomfortable things, we try to avoid it. No, it brings me some pain. It brings me something bad. I don't want to. But in order to tackle a challenge, you must recognize it. It's like if you fear spiders and you're away, you see a spider and you run away. No, what psychiatric people say, you have to face your fears. So when we see a coaching moment, is because we see, as the spider analogy, that you have to face. But you cannot say, okay, Chris, I'm going to lock you up in a room full of spiders and close the door. Man, you're going to die. So
Exactly.
little by little, yeah, little by little has to be. And when you gain confidence in yourself, it's going to be much better. And if you have the guidance of your humiliator, it's going to be much better, much better.
Yeah, I think a common one, certainly as you're growing in leadership skills, is public speaking. Very common for people to have a fear of public speaking, and so the coachable moment might be, let's say it's performance review time, right? Because people are going to ask, hey, Roberto, I really want to move up and I want to move into management. But that you've given this person opportunities in the past to present technical topics or something to even just to your own team, and they've avoided it because you've detected this fear of public speaking. So the coachable moment might actually be during performance review time, right? It's just a very obvious time, but there's going to be less obvious times once you've learned that maybe they have this fear of public speaking, or no, I don't like to do public speaking. Okay, well, if you're going to be a leader, you've got to get comfortable with that because you're going to do presentations a lot. So maybe you start in that coaching moment by having them just help you prepare the slide deck, right? The PowerPoint presentation. You get these ideas together, you talk with them, and you kind of coach them through how to set the mechanics of PowerPoint, right? The mechanics of how many bullet points. Don't use tiny fonts, that you're going to fill this page with 10 paragraphs worth of information. And you start to teach them little by little. You as the leader may still do the presentation, but you start to get them involved in the process so that they can kind of ease into that uncomfortable task of saying, look, it is public speaking is a lot of mechanical preparation, right? And get them to participate in that little bit first. And if they master that, maybe you work with them and you rehearse the presentation with them. In other words, you're still giving it and you rehearse it with them and then you give it and they're in the audience. So then, all right, that's how you prepared. And then maybe the next time they can try doing that presentation for just your small team, right? Baby steps. But you have to your point, you have to recognize what does the team person want to get to? What is their kind of career goals and things like that? If some team members don't want to have anything to do with management, I just want to head down, do my job, and I'm happy at the salary I've got. That's all I want. But a lot more seem to want to go into management. I'm not quite sure why, because it is painful. But if that's where they want to go, that is a coaching opportunity. They want to talk to you about, furthering their career. So now you have an opportunity because over time you've observed some things that they have not mastered yet. And you know that, well, all right, you want to be a leader of a team? Well, unfortunately, every time we're doing a new project, I have to present what the timeline is. I have to present the costs. I got to get approval for things. Here's how I do it. And you have this then opportunity to say, if you're interested, I'll have you work with me on it together. I'll still do the presentation this first time, but let's work on it. And next time, maybe you can do a part of it. Maybe not, the whole thing, but a part of it. And those are opportunities that they may not come along that often, right? Let's say budget presentations, typically only once a year, right? So you kind of have to be observing the team continuously, but you may not, have opportunities to use that information all the time. So you have to kind of watch for, hey, I got a presentation coming up. I know Roberto wants to go into leadership, but we haven't had any presentation opportunities all year till now. I'm going to bring in Roberto and have him help me with this presentation. So humane leadership takes a long memory, because sometimes, you may have recognized that Roberto has this public speaking issue 3 months ago, but you need to remember it now and put it into place, take action on it now. Yeah. So sometimes I'd never recommend making artificial opportunities.
Yeah.
Right? Don't have a fake presentation opportunity. That's not helpful.
No, because that is like lying, and you don't have to lie.
Right.
People will recognize when the opportunity arises and when you're truthful about helping that team member to overcome those challenges. Let me tell you something that it is related to public speaking. I was working at a bank when I was between 23 to 28, a huge bank here in Mexico. And 1 year after I entered the company, there was a big meeting with all system engineers. We were like 200 in that in that department. It was all the engineering. And my boss said to me, Roberto, you're going to be showing what you have done about this particular application to all the engineers. And he told me, you're going to talk this day at this hour. Man, I was so nervous. Nobody told me anything about how to do public speaking. My boss, he was really, he had a lot of experience, but he didn't say anything to me. And when I approached him, I said, "Hey, I'm in a fear of talking or doing public speaking. You're going to be okay. Don't worry." Those words, drill me in my brain a lot from that day until the one that I spoke. And I remember well, when I began talking to all my teammates, to all engineering, I began having blood pouring from my nose onto to all my shirt. And we were wearing at that time tie and a jacket. No, my God, it was a mess. And I didn't see that I was what was happening. I kept talking. Suddenly, one director stood up, came to me, and he gave me a handkerchief. And he told me, no, stop this. Let's move on to another presentation, and we'll see what's going on. And my presentation stopped because I was so nervous that I couldn't see what was going on. And even though I was talking with the microphone, hey, we have done this, yada, 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 totally covered in blood. It was like a Slayer concert. But,
Wow.
yeah.
Well, that's being very engaged in your topic to be able to ignore all those other signs and things going on. That is, well, I think that while I have given many, many, many presentations in my life, I only remember the ones where I didn't do very well. Even when I had prepared, but for whatever reason get derailed because of nerves or whatever. So it is, one coachable thing specific to public speaking is that you can master it and you can be very good at it. And occasionally you still will have bad presentations. And I remember one I did for the graduating class at my master's program. And it was several years after I had graduated. They brought me back as a speaker. And oh my God, I don't know. I had prepared, I had all my notes, I've done so many presentations. And for whatever reason, being amongst all my peers and from many other companies and my professors just brought me back to like high school. And I got nervous, even though I've made presentations to Dave Cote, the CEO of all of Honeywell. Didn't make me nervous to talk in front of him, but to be in front of these guys, somehow I got nervous and I flubbed it up. A lot of stuttering, a lot of whoops, went back to the same point. And to this day, I still have a slight nightmares about it. So, I think anyone can master certain skills if you put enough time in it, but also we have to coach our team to realize that even if I work with you a lot on your presentation and coach you a lot, it's still, sometimes it just doesn't go well. It just does. And I think even that as a humane leader is helping our team realize no matter how much you prepare for things, sometimes things just don't go the way you want them to, and that kind of failure post presentation, right, is a very coachable moment. When things go great and it's a great success, you coach somebody through something, they did it's great success, you absolutely recognize it and tell them. That is fantastic. But I'll tell you what, you learn way more from the failures. And so when you have a team member who has something that didn't go well, frequently that can be a very coachable moment. And you'll have to use your judgment on when's the appropriate time to coach them about it. Now, when you had your problem speaking at the bank, did your boss coach you while you're cleaning up your face in the bathroom?
No.
Or was it back at, after a few days, okay, let's reflect back on what went wrong, what can we do better the next time? the coachable moment is not right away in that situation, right? You need a couple days to absorb what happened. Be prepared. The employee has to be prepared to take the feedback. And so if you give feedback in the heat of that moment where you got blood on your face, and it just, you could say the same words, but it's likely you wouldn't have heard a single one of them.
Yeah, actually, I didn't receive any positive feedback from my boss back then. He laughed at me and said, "Hi, Roberto, why'd you get so nervous? It was nothing like that. Yada, yada, yada." He didn't provide me anything, but the director who stood up and gave me the handkerchief, that guy told me, I think it was that day and upcoming days after that, he gave me some pointers. Okay, everybody gets nervous. What you have to do is talk to yourself in front of the mirror, see your gestures, see how are your hands moving. Don't try to be stiff and do not do it. Try to do it as if you were talking to a friend, and then from a friend, a couple of friends, and then to a bunch of friends, and you will see that it will be much easier. And that advices helped me like 10 years after that, because I remember that I was in a big meeting like with 500 people, and suddenly one of the presenters who were talking in this meeting say, "Hey, my friend Roberto is over there. Hey, Roberto, do you remember that time that when we, hey," rather than me saying it, what do you bring, get up to the stage and talk about that? And I remember, well, when I stood up and I began walking to the stage, I remember what that director talked to me, spoke to me about it, and I did that. It was only like 5-6 minutes, but I didn't get nervous. I enjoy it. I did. I think that I dropped a joke that make everybody laugh, but it is down my nervousness. So I think that you don't have to be you don't have to always stick to providing coaching to someone of your team members. If you see the opportunity, as this director gave me back then, because he wasn't my director, he was from another department, and he willingly gave me all that. Well, if I could do the same to someone else who I see that requires coaching, I will do it right away.
Absolutely. And it's recognizing the when, right? There are certain times when something's going on, and no matter how great of a humane leader you may be, the person just isn't going to hear you. It's too close to the moment. Maybe it was too close to the whatever didn't work, failed. So sometimes there has to be some distance to it. Sometimes it needs to be corrected immediately in the moment. There are certain things, as humane leaders, we need to tackle immediately. There's always going to be some things that you need to do it right then. Let's say an employee is starting to yell and scream. That needs to be corrected immediately. It doesn't matter whether you're a humane leader or you're a boss. That needs to be stopped right away, right? Or they're being sexist or they're being racist. That has to immediately be stopped. But there's a lot of other things that we do in coaching that sometimes a little distance. Let the employee think about what happened and how something didn't work as well as they'd like. And now that they recognize that things didn't quite go as well as they'd like, that's your opportunity to step in and try and give them some words of wisdom and help them so that next time it works out much better.
Yeah, indeed. And that happens in life, actually, not only in work, in our personal life. We might be the recipients of someone who is coaching us, and maybe we haven't spotted, but we will. So rather than avoiding bad situations of our comfortable situations, we have to embrace that if someone is maybe coaching us in a true way, not trying to gain something from us, let's listen to that person, that team member, that humiliator, that coach, and let's reflect on that, and maybe we will change towards good.
I completely agree. And try the flavored coffees with your wife.
Okay, I will. Well, man, thanks a lot, and I'll see you next week.
Very good. See you later, Roberto.